If you've been around for, let's say, the last 2 decades, and you hear the phrase Chuck E. Cheese, what comes to mind? You'll probably hold onto the thought of what it used to be than what it currently is. It was a place where kids could be themselves. That isn't the case as of today. Grab some popcorn as I take you down memory lane on how this giant was built, its fall, and the changes made. It all began in the 1970s when Nolan Bushnell, co-founder of the successful video game company Atari, became intrigued by robotics and engineering alongside his passion for video games. Observing the substantial revenue generated by video arcades, a direct result of Atari's success, Bushnell conceived the idea of combining a restaurant with the arcade experience. He envisioned a pizza establishment that not only allowed patrons to play arcade games while waiting for their food, but also aimed to create a family-friendly dining experience reminiscent of an amusement park, complete with the marvels of animatronics similar to those found in Disneyland. This endeavor was primarily a passion project for Bushnell, which he had been nurturing on the sidelines, waiting for the right moment to bring his vision to life. That opportunity presented itself when Warner Communications acquired Atari in 1976. As part of this acquisition, they also received Bushnell's restaurant concept. Warner agreed to develop this concept, and in 1977, using the rat mascot character they had been testing, Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater opened in San Jose, California. Children adored the space, and families flocked to these large restaurants. They utilized the 20-minute wait for their pizzas to be ready by spending tokens on the numerous arcade machines. Just a year after its opening, Bushnell left Atari, but he remained optimistic about the potential of the Pizza Time brand, given its early accomplishments. He had so much faith in it that he purchased the name and rights from Warner Communications for $500,000. Nolan then set his sights on expansion through franchising the restaurant concept. He had already identified several interested parties, one of whom was Robert Brock, the owner of the Brock Hotel Corporation, a prosperous hospitality management company seeking to expand its portfolio. Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater seemed like the ideal venture for Brock, and he became enthusiastic about establishing these restaurants across his familiar markets. The two men entered into a co-development agreement to establish over 200 Pizza Time restaurants nationwide. At this stage, the restaurant chain only had a presence in 6 California and 1 Nevada locations. However, Robert Brock's enthusiasm for the venture began to waver when he encountered what he believed to be a more promising opportunity. In late 1979, he was introduced to an engineer named Aaron Fechter, who had recently showcased his advanced animatronic character show. Brock was now convinced that Fechter's animatronics work was significantly ahead of Bushnell's. Fechter was also working on a project known as the Rockafire Explosion, a fully life-sized animatronic character band. Brock was so impressed that he envisioned his family entertainment restaurant utilizing Fechter's highly advanced animatronics. As a result, Brock sought to exit his Pizza Time contract. After a protracted legal battle spanning 2 years, he ultimately succeeded in breaking their contracts, with the agreement specifying that Brock would have to pay fees based on annual gross revenue for the use of the restaurant concepts for a predetermined number of locations. Subsequently, Brock and Fechter ventured to create their restaurant in 1980, which they called Showbiz Pizza Place. Their mascot, known as Billy Bob, was a large country-style bear, which I would say was probably just as intimidating. However, despite closely mirroring Pizza Time's business model, Showbiz Pizza Place was a resounding success. The fully sized and programmable Rockafire Explosion Band proved to be a crowd pleaser and overshadowed the framed animatronics still used by Pizza Time. With the remarkable success of their initial location and substantial capital from Brock's Hotel Corporation, they managed to open over 80 new locations within just a year. These new venues introduced the innovative entertainment concept to previously untapped regions of the country, quickly establishing dominance in the market. By the end of 1983, they had opened over 200 locations. However, despite this expansion, the company reported losses exceeding $80 million. The average revenue per location had significantly declined, and they faced increasing competition from Showbiz Pizza as well as other emerging chains with similar concepts, such as Bullwinkle's. Chuck E. Cheese's financial situation reached a critical point exacerbated by the video game crash of 1983. However, in a surprising turn of events in 1984, Chuck E. Cheese's very competitor, Showbiz Pizza, the chain that had essentially copied their idea and expanded far beyond their original reach, made an offer to buy the entire company for $35 million. With virtually no other viable options and without Bushnell, the offer was accepted. The two companies, Showbiz Pizza and its competitor, merged to create Showbiz Pizza Time Incorporated. Showbiz faced difficulties in the challenging market conditions, but had substantial cash reserves. They acquired their largest competitor, positioning themselves to dominate the family restaurant market. Robert Brock, the former owner of Showbiz Pizza, left, and a new CEO was brought in to manage both brands. Showbiz Pizza Time struggled financially, with over 100 locations closing. Outside capital was injected, and debt was reduced by more than half. In the mid-1980s, they focused on customer experience, and by 1988, they spun off from Brock Hotel Corporation. New animatronic stages were installed in Chuck E. Cheese locations. By 1990, they planned to choose one brand for marketing and brand expansion as their unification strategy. In the end, Chuck E. Cheese emerged as the stronger of the two brands. Things began to turn around positively for the corporation. By 1998, they had changed their name to better reflect their overall brand, becoming CEC Entertainment. Revenue was on the rise, surpassing $370 million, and investors noticed the company's long-term vision and the effort put into bringing it back from the brink of bankruptcy. By 2012, sales had begun to decline, losing around 2% compared to the previous year. Corporate wanted to make changes, and they initiated a rebranding effort. The Chuck E. Cheese logo was redesigned, featuring a thinner word mark, and Chuck's mascot character became two-dimensional. Unfortunately, this rebranding didn't resonate well with customers, and sales failed to recover. This is where Apollo Global Management stepped in. They saw potential in restructuring CEC Entertainment to better cater to the changing generations of kids. Apollo purchased $335 million worth of CEC's stock and borrowed another $1 billion to acquire the company entirely, taking it private. Under the ownership of Apollo Global Management, CEC Entertainment began exploring various strategies to boost profit margins and renovate its locations. They also acquired Peter Piper Pizza, another family entertainment brand, and quickly rebranded it with the same boarding logo treatment that Chuck E. Cheese had previously undergone. Speaking of logos, Chuck E. Cheese's logo was changed in 2017 to better align with its evolving brand strategy. This evolving strategy culminated in Chuck E. Cheese 2.0 in 2017, which represented a complete redesign of the brand. They approached restaurant renovations with a clean slate, adopting flat interior design and muted colors both inside and outside the restaurants. Many of the larger attractions were removed, including the beloved animatronic characters. In most cases, these animatronics were replaced by interactive LED floor displays, and large screens occupied sections of the walls. Additionally, the iconic gold tokens were replaced with plastic cards, and the menus were enhanced to better appeal to parents. As the decade neared its close in 2019, the company managed to maintain relatively stable revenue, approaching the $1 billion mark across its 741 stores. Despite this revenue, they failed to make substantial progress in paying off their billion-dollar debt. Instead, they continued to accumulate debt through investments in the 2.0 renovations. Recognizing that their plans were not yielding the desired results, Apollo seemed to want to reduce its stake in the company and seek new investors. They intended to eventually bring CEC Entertainment back to the public stock markets. To accomplish this, they struck a deal with a British private equity firm to merge CEC Entertainment into a shell corporation they had established. The appraised value for the company was set at $1.4 billion, just slightly more than what Apollo had initially invested. By July 2019, the deal to merge CEC Entertainment into a shell corporation had been scrapped, along with the company's hopes of raising new funds to pay off its debt and the dreams of a new IPO. Now, in 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic struck, forcing the closure of nearly every Chuck E. Cheese location. Their business model heavily relied on dine-in food, birthday parties, and arcade machines, all of which were closed-contact activities. As a result, they were forced to close their doors in March. The company furloughed thousands of employees and incurred substantial financial losses. They tried to find alternative uses for their idle locations, including using their kitchens as ghost restaurants under the name Pasquale's Pizza on delivery apps. Despite being a very different entity compared to the 1980s, this was the brand's second time experiencing insolvency. It took everyone by surprise, sending shockwaves through the community, and many people feared it could be the end of Chuck E. Cheese. Over the next year, the company continued to reopen stores and navigated through Chapter 11 bankruptcy proceedings. By January 2021, CEC emerged from bankruptcy as a new LLC entity, having successfully paid off over $700 million of its debt and securing a stable $100 million in liquidity. This also meant that Apollo's majority stake in the company had been diluted, making Monarch Alternative Capital the new owner. With the bankruptcy behind them and restaurants across America back in operation, the company resumed its store renovations. CEC Entertainment, the company behind Chuck E. Cheese, has faced numerous challenges and changes over the years. Its decline has been noticeable for the past 2 decades, and the corporate drama and rivalries that shaped the company's history are a testament to the unique and innovative concept it once represented.